So on number 1, they want us to use synthetic division. So I hope you guys remember how to use synthetic division. You simply place the opposite number that you see here in the box. So you put the positive 2 in the box, and then out here you put all the coefficient values of your standard form polynomial. So you have a 1 as a leading coefficient in front of the x to the third. You also have, actually you don't have an x squared, so that means you need to put a 0 there. And then you have a negative 19 in front of the x, and of course you have a positive 30 at the very end, the constant. Then you put a line down here like this, and what we do is you take the 1 and you bring it down. So far we have a 1 down here. And then we take the 2 and multiply it by 1. 2 times 1 is 2, so I want to put a 2 up here. And then 0 plus 2 is 2. And then 2 times 2 is 4 up here. And then when you combine negative 19 and positive 4, you get a negative 15 down here. And then 2 times negative 15 is negative 30 up here. And we should all know that right here, negative 30 and positive 30 is 0. So it's clear that the remainder is 0. So they want us to do synthetic division. This is our answer down here. All we need to do is put the variables on it. So if you started with the x to the third and you divided by x, the first term should be an x squared. So let me write my answer right here on the side. It's going to be 1x squared, you can put just x squared, plus 2x minus 15. This is the answer. Now, if I would have had a remainder, I would put the remainder over the original divisor. So like, let's say I would have had a 1 right here. I would have put at the very end plus 1 over x minus 2. But we don't have a remainder. The remainder was 0, so that's just our answer. Okay, so just to recap, it's important to be able to know how to set this up. You take the opposite of what you see here, put it in the box, put your coefficient values. There's a 1 right here. There is no x squared, so it's 1 for the x to the third, 0 for the x squares. There's a negative 19 in front of the x, and there's a plus 30 at the very end. So as you go down, you add. 1 plus nothing is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Negative 19 plus 4 is negative 15. 2 times negative 15 is negative 30. And negative 30 plus 30 is 0. I hope we understand how to do number 1. Please practice by doing 1 part B over here. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to jump to number 2. You guys should practice it and check your answers later when I post them on Edmodo. So number 2, it says factor y to the third minus 125 completely. In order to do this, we need to know the difference of 2 cubes formula. Here is our difference of 2 cubes formula, okay? So whenever you see a minus sign with a perfect cube term and a perfect cube term, you're going to have to memorize this formula and use this formula. It's easy. It's a binomial times a trinomial. 2 terms, 3 terms. And if you started with a difference of 2 cubes, then the binomial will be the difference of a and b. So if you had a minus here, there's going to be a minus right here. Does that make sense? Now, if you do have a minus here, then your middle term will be the opposite of minus, which is plus. So if you had a sum, if this were a sum of 2 cubes, if this was a plus sign, then this first one would be a plus sign, which means that the middle one would be a minus sign. I hope that helps you guys remember this formula, the difference of 2 cubes formula. So anyways, the first thing to do to apply the difference of 2 cubes formula is to look at your values, y to the third and 125, and be able to identify your a and your b. So it would be good to do this, parenthesis cube minus parenthesis cube. That way you could see, well, what belongs inside this first parenthesis? That's easy, that's y. And over here, b cubed, what cubed gives you the 125? 5, right? So there's a 5 that belongs in there. Now that's just to identify your a and your b. That's not even part of your actual formula. What is the formula? The formula is a binomial times a trinomial. So I'm going to go binomial times trinomial. So the binomial is y minus 5. Y minus 5. The trinomial is a squared. So I'm going to go y squared plus a times b which in this case is plus y times 5. But you know what? I could do that in my head. I might as well, instead of writing y times 5, I might as well write what? What's y times 5? 5y. So let me erase it. Let me put a 5y right there. So let's put 5y right there. Okay? And the last one, b squared plus b squared. What's b squared? It's 5. 5 squared is 25. So I hope you guys understand how to do that, because that is factored form. That's your answer right there. This is your answer. It says factor it. There we factored it using the formula. Okay? Now if we look at part B, it's the same type of thing, but instead of difference of two cubes, it's sum of two cubes, right? So the sum of two cubes is the same exact thing as the difference of two cubes. Let's say a cubed, but instead of a minus, it's a plus. You could clearly see that it's a plus sign right there instead of minus. So a cubed plus b cubed, what is the formula? It's a binomial times a trinomial. So if you had a plus, then right here it's going to be a plus, all right? So my first binomial will be a plus b. And my second trinomial, it's going to be a squared. It's always a squared. But if this was a plus, then the middle term is going to be a minus. Yay? And what is the middle term? It's ab put together and plus b squared. Okay? It's the same exact formula as over here, as what we have over here. If you start with the minus, then your first binomial is going to have a minus. But if your first binomial has a minus, the middle term will be plus. The a squared is always positive. The b squared is always positive. Over here, on this formula, well, if you have a plus to start with, then your first binomial will be a plus, and your second term on your trinomial will be a minus. And then it's just a question of identifying your a and b. And I probably even shouldn't do this. I should let you guys, you know what? I'll just start it for you to identify a and b, and you guys could work, plug in the rest and get your answer there. So what's your a value? A value is 2x, because what times itself 3 times gives you an 8x cubed? 2x times 2x times 2x is 8x cubed. Now how about the b value? What's the b value going to be? In this case, 1. Yeah, because 1 times 1 times 1 gives you 1. So that's your a value, and that's your b value. Now you know your a, now you know your b, and now you could actually plug it in, and once you plug it in, that'll be your answer. So I might as well do that since I went this far on the video. We're going to have parenthesis a plus b. What do I really have? 2x is the a, plus 1 is the b. And then over here, you know what? It'd be a good idea to use parentheses when you plug in a squared. Because if you plug in 2x squared, you might forget and leave it as 2x squared. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the a value right in there, okay? And I'm going to plug in 2x right in there. So 2x belongs right in there. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then we have, yes, in English. And then we have minus parenthesis times parenthesis. And right there, you're going to put your a value and your b value. Again, the a value is 2x. The b value is 1. And at the very end, you have a plus b squared plus 1 squared. You could put in parentheses, but it's not going to make a difference. It's still going to be 1. You know what? I'll just put the square there just for fun. Anyway, to make your answer as nice as possible, you're going to have the binomial 2x plus 1 times the trinomial 4x squared minus 2x, running out of space here, plus 1 at the very end. And that's your factored form of that guy. Does that make sense? Now, on the test, I don't think you're going to have both sum and difference of two cubes. You're just going to have one of them. That's why this practice test has both of them. So make sure you understand both the sum and the difference of two cubes. Let's move on to number 3 here. It says, find f of 2 and f of negative 1 if that's your function. So one option is to plug it in and work it all out, but it says tip, use synthetic substitution. Well, that's pretty easy. All you got to do for synthetic substitution is to write down all of the coefficients of your standard form polynomial. So in front we have a 1. So we have a 1 right there. What is the number in front of the x to the 4th power? There is no x to the 4th power, so you're going to put 0 because there is no x to the 4th power. And then we have x to the 3rd. The number in front is negative 7. Then we have x squared, which we don't have x squared, so that's another 0. And then we have negative 4 for the x, and we have positive 10 at the constant at the very end. All we need is the box right here. Now, what are we substituting in? Well, they want you to substitute f of 2 and f of negative 1. So which one do you guys want to do on this video?
2.
Okay, let's plug in f of 2. So remember, when you're doing substitution, you plug in that value that you want to substitute. You don't have to think opposite or flip it like on synthetic division. So anyways, let's put a line here. Let's zoom in and let's do the work. So as you go down, 1 plus nothing is 1. So we have a 1 right here. And then we have 2 times 1, that's 2. So that's a 2 right there. And of course, 0 plus 2 is 2. So we have a 2 down here. And of course, when we multiply 2 times 2, that's 4. So we have a 4 up here. And then negative 7 plus 4, that's negative 3. It's negative 3 down there. And then positive 2 times negative 3, that's negative 6. So we have a negative 6 up here. And 0 minus 6, that's a negative 6 again. Negative 6 down here. And multiplying 2 times negative 6, you get a negative 12. So you get a negative 12 up here. And then as you go down, negative 4 minus 12, that's negative 16. So you have negative 16 down here. And last but not least, 2 times negative 16 is negative 32. So you have a negative 32 up here. And 10 minus 32, the final answer here is negative 22. Yay? And this is your output using synthetic substitution. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now you're going to have to go back and do the same thing for f of negative 1. Okay, so to write your correct answer, it'd be a good idea to write the notation again. The notation is f of 2 gave us the answer negative 22. That's one answer. You still need to go back and find f of negative 1. Okay, the same way we did right here. But go ahead and practice that on your own. We'll pick up the next video with number 4, talking about x-intercepts and real zeros and solutions and answers, which are all the same thing.